We are shows what you know. We'll always watch TV. And if you think we can't, we'll watch more and you'll see. That's why the people of the web believe in Jim from Las Vegas and Jacob from Sweden.
Extra, extra, charming guardian married off to sweet and innocent child bride. It's a heartwarming story that you can read all about on page 4 of this week's Gilead Gazette. I am Jacob Burrows.
And I'm Jim Scampoli. We are back. We are back here after a small sabbatical here from the Gilead Gazette. It was almost like we were sent such good weather that we couldn't help but enjoy it for a little while. And now we're back to discuss episodes 5 and 6 of season 2 of The Handmaid's Tale. Episode 5 is titled Seeds, and episode 6 is titled First Blood.
I almost started with a very different extra, just yelling the end of episode 6 because that's a much more newsworthy type thing to do. But I realized if you're watching episode by episode, you may have just automatically played the next episode, and maybe you just watched episode 5. I thought I better not yell the ending of episode 6 right at the start there. But we did skip 1 week because Jim enjoyed the good weather on a little vacation, and now we're back. So we're going to talk about both episodes. Initial thoughts, Jim?
Now, I understand, like, episode 6 has the more explosive climax, if you will.
Yeah.
I actually saw a headline that said it was the most explosive episode yet, and I rolled my eyes.
Cool.
I will say, though, I feel episode 5 is the best episode of this season.
What makes you feel like that?
I don't know. It really worked for me. I mean, coming off of episode 4, wherein we talked a lot at length about the misery porn that is The Handmaid's Tale in a lot of cases. And episode 5 does continue that quite a bit because we did leave off with kind of more zombified Offred, who kind of escaped inward. We don't really spend too long with that Offred. I mean, episode 5 explores that a bit, but I guess I liked that even though it was like such a short amount of time, the way episode 5 plays out, it really worked for me, and it hit on that level of like I bought that kind of June was coming back a little bit. And I mean, we'll get into a little bit more of some of the specifics, but finding the small victories and the small like beacons of hope. Maybe it was just that this show beat me so down that even these small things like really like resonated with me kind of in a bigger way than some of like the big moment of episode 6 did.
Yeah. I mean, I even though we are a Gilead Gazette, a Gilead news station, I am frustrated with almost every review of everything I've ever seen about The Handmaid's Tale because it will always endeavor to spoil me in some way. Like something popped up, so I knew that. So I knew Nick would get married, and something let me know that there was a huge twist at the end of episode 6. And I mean, I'm not like complaining. That doesn't ruin the experience in any way, but it is sort of frustrating when you're trying to enjoy the little moments and not just wonder when's the big thing gonna happen. Because you're right, it was explosive at the end of episode 6, but I also feel like if it doesn't involve my main crew that I care about, I'm not going to care as much. Like June coming back at the end of episode 5 is more important than an explosion where none of our main favorite characters are, except the commander, who we obviously all love, who is there, but I mean, he's not dead. Like, there's no fucking way he's dead. Maybe he loses a leg or something. I don't know. It would be interesting, but there's no way he's dead. So it is more impactful at the end of episode 5 when June reappears under the covers.
Yes, yeah, and I guess it kind of, it's kind of like a good. These are two. if we're gonna discuss two episodes at once, I feel like these are two like a perfect little moment here for these two episodes. Because yeah, I mean, episode 5, yeah, we kind of get like the true handmaid version of June, or Offred, if you will, and kind of starts off. She's even like burning the letters because it's like, I'm not supposed to have these. I'm not supposed to be out of my room after dark, and it's like all hope is lost. And then we check back in with the colonies, and we see Emily and Janine. And we've talked a lot about any show. I mean, we do shows, which we talk about a bunch of TV shows. And we always talk about like how when people praise the look of something, and at least one of my points of view on that is almost anything's going to look good these days if it's on a major network, whether it be streaming network or television network or what have you. But in true hypocrisy, I do want to call out, I feel like especially this episode 5, everything feels very deliberate.
That was the word on the tip of my tongue to describe what you're talking about as well. Because things look great, you have great like lenses and shit, but when they do stuff consciously and make an effort, that's also exactly how I felt watching this.
Yes, and especially like some of the shots of the colonies, we got these wide shots of just these kind of like infinite fields of like death. Basically, it's like these dead lands, and we see like these women that are very small on the horizon, and like this great like an infinity that they have to fight or try to win against, when clearly, like they even say in the show, we work, we die. We come here, we work, and then we die. And it feels like such an insurmountable thing. And then specifically too, like, I mean, throughout this episode, we have zombie Offred, but she's spotting, and she's got blood in her panties and like all over her clothes, because as what we're thinking as the audience is that the baby is dying, and of course that's what you would think. And she doesn't say anything, because what is she supposed to do? If she does say anything, like that's the major rule that she can't break, is don't let this baby die. And there's that specific shot when she's in the tub, and there's the reflection of her in the bloody water, and it's like, I guess to be my read, to be like a pretentious douche, is like I see Offred and then I see June in the reflection, and it's telling me, I don't know, it's just telling me so much. And I was really like taken aback by a lot of the visuals in this episode. I thought it was great.
Yeah, I mean, I was sniggering a little bit, but you're not wrong. Like, it's all in there. They put a deliberate effort into making the film itself tell you what's going on. I don't. Is there voiceover in episode 5?
No.
No.
Yeah, no, another great choice. Another, like, I mean, we were left off with the droning of "We've been sent good weather," and now it's an Offred episode, but we're not getting the usual winks to us, the audience, like the usual pieces of hope that we kind of get. Yeah, there's no voiceover.
Yeah, which as well, like in season 1, even though they've used it fairly well, it's also clearly the best choice for here to give us a contrast to season 1, and also just to make it feel empty and desolate and everything going on. She is not really there, and she's like, even the way they shoot some things, like when she's stepping on the scales, we don't see her face. We're behind her. She's facing away from us. When she's out walking with Serena, we're outside of the wings or whatever they call it, the white thing. We're outside that. We're with Serena, who's trying even to peek in, who wants Offred to be aggressive, or at least a little bit of her usual witty self, and not just this zombie, because that can't be good either. So a lot of good choices.
Yes, I mean, even to the point, like you said, of how we're not seeing her face. I almost started getting the feel of like when that happens in a horror movie, it's because there's going to be a reveal that she's like mangled or whatever. Not that I thought that was going to happen, but I was getting uncomfortable with the way they were shooting her. That felt like something was going to happen, or some reveal was going to happen. So it was very effective. And even like Fiona and Kit. I don't know anything about Fiona and Kit, but I love Fiona and Kit. Those are the two women in the colonies that have this relationship. And it's like, that's why one of the greatest praises I can give is that it's just these two characters that pop up in an episode. And I cared so much about them. And it really like affected me when they had a wedding. I mean, obviously we see another wedding in this episode as well with Nick's wedding, but it really affected me. And it like kind of the like naivete of Janine is giving this like life to hopelessness. And just these small victories. I don't know. It all played so well for me.
Yeah, and Rory Gilmore doesn't like that
Yeah.
because because she's been controlling the misery and limiting it and being able to do this, and you can't be in here experiencing joy or relief because we come here, we work, we die. And I think, I mean, and even the argument at the end there when she's mad because you've done these things, it's like she's wrong, but she's right. And in her naivete, she is right still. But then every bit of joy can be used against you as well.
Yes, and I also I do completely agree with Emily as well, because it does feel like if you're making the best of the situation, you're like letting them win in a way. Like you shouldn't accept any of this.
Yeah.
But then you also should find those moments because it's going to give you the strength to like build something. And the fact that these women have each other, and the fact that the little ceremony they had, it wasn't just for Fiona and Kit. You could see that the other women that are stuck in the situation had a little bit more life to them because they were able to at least have a little piece of joy in such a horrible situation.
Yeah, and I'll say this, which is sort of about both episodes, but I guess mainly about episode 5, that we expressed a bit of concern earlier that we were just going to go back to season 1, like that we were sort of sick of being in this situation where, oh no, like this is the format, you're off red, so, and then she's gonna rebel and do these things, and it's really shown us, I think, especially episode 5, that there's still material here to explore, even if we hate it, even if we don't want to be here. It's like, well, this is the concept of the show, and if we were to head off and do warfare right now, we would have left this not totally explored because we're going different places than we did in season 1.
Yes, yeah. And I mean, like we've talked a lot about excuse me, like the situation with like the Econo wives and who can get pregnant and who can't. And now we're kind of getting a little bit more of that as we see as we see Nick and the other, are they eyes? Is that what they are?
Well, no, I is like, it's a secret that he's an eye.
Really? Yeah, okay, that's what it was. He's secretly an eye. He's basically just a driver or like a first lieutenant type deal.
A guardian is what they
Guardian.
called him.
That's what it was. As we see, yeah, the Guardians all getting married. And at first I wasn't sure, because at first I'm like, wait, are these supposed to be really young girls? And then, I mean, they do explicitly state it. So it's like another piece, but it's about like, because, he's telling them how they're going to have children, they're going to have a family. And I guess it's the next step. Like maybe you're a guardian, maybe you could get to the point where you're a commander, kind of.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I get the feeling from Fred, Commander Fred, that Waterford, that he I mean, he knows, because Serena told him, he knows Nick is the father of the baby. So there's a lot of resentment going on throughout these, but he doesn't say like, I mean, he doesn't want, or he can't really do something bad to Nick. So he actually goes and says, can we please promote this guy? So he goes away, maybe to Washington. So he's not that like, I mean, he's a monster, but he's not like gonna kill him for vengeance. And I think it's almost tied into his religion of like, well, Nick is not a bad man because of this, but I want him the fuck out of my house, and I'm gonna promote him, and I'm gonna ask for him to get promoted, and I guess this is part of it. There it is a mention in the second episode of these as well that Serena says like, "Oh, don't you want to run a household of your own one day?" And I feel like a household is not an econo wife thing. That's like if you get promoted. And I guess if anyone were to become a new commander, it would be someone like Nick, who's doing a good job.
Yes, yeah, and we do. He marries, which we later find out she's 15. I mean, we know that they're young. I just wasn't sure how young. And then he does mention she's 15. His wife, Eden, who, if you watched Everything Sucks, we do get a character from Everything Sucks. She played Emmeline. It was actually
Yes.
bugging me as I was watching because I was like, where have I seen this actress before? And I had to look it up. I couldn't just
Me
off the top of my head.
Yeah, no, me too. Everything Sucks, a much too earlyly canceled Netflix teen drama where she plays a very different character.
Yeah.
It's probably because she got all her hair hidden up in there that it's like I have no idea who this face is because I just remember her rocking out with her long hair before. But yes, she. I mean, it's a valid question you had of how old are they supposed to be because she is actually 20 years old, the actress. They still, I mean, they make it pretty plain that these are some young girls. As you said, it gives us a kind of a piece of the puzzle of, well, there are seemingly a lot of girls who are around the age of 15. So how long ago did these fertility problems start? And next episode we get even more explicit because
Yes.
I've been saying where are the numbers, and we'll get into the next episode in a bit. But Serena says, fertility's down about 60% in 12 months. I think, which is a lot when we can assume it got even worse than that, but we can also assume it's not as bad as we originally thought.
Absolutely. And yeah, through most of this episode, it does feel like we're just kind of going through the standard Handmaid's Tale motions because it is like, Offred's getting bloodier and bloodier as this episode goes, and it just feels like it's such tragedy. And then it is basically a twist that the baby is still alive at the end. But it's such a great moment when, yeah, we see June under the covers having the moment with their unborn baby and saying, like, I'm not gonna let you grow up here. I'm gonna get us out of here. And it's like she's back. And again, it's that it's the look into the camera again that we saw in the previous episode, but it's like we're seeing life there.
Yeah.
And even though it's arguable that it's almost too soon, but it's not because this show is such a downer. It's like we need this moment, we need these moments to kind of hold on to. I mean, much like these characters. I obviously I'm being melodramatic because we're watching a
Yeah.
TV show, and if they're living through this actual life, but it's like no, we need these victories.
Yeah. I don't think it was. I think it was just the right amount of time, and that's why the episode worked for you so well, and well for me as well. I think because if we had I was sort of dreading that this would be 3 episodes until we got to this point, and the movement they've introduced makes me way hopeful for the rest of the season, which I guess brings us to episode 6, where she is clearly back, and the main thing here is sort of that Serena is trying to be nice. Like that's what this episode is about. And June, and I was annoyed that my subtitles referred to her as Offred after this point. But June is trying to. I mean, she's just making small moves. She's not doing anything crazy. She's sort of getting a slightly better position to be able to do something at some point.
Yes, yeah. I mean, we open up with the doctor, and to call out another actor from another show, we get to see Donnie from Orphan Black as the doctor. I was very excited. I don't know if you watched Orphan Black or not, but that was Donnie as the doctor, and I missed him, so I was glad to see him.
I watched season 1 of that one. Is it the same doctor that offered to impregnate her in season 1, or did we never see his face? Maybe I don't remember.
Oh, maybe it is. I'm not sure. I don't remember. But
Well,
oh, God.
no, I was just gonna say we see the baby, and Serena offers to show the baby, which Donnie from Black is like, oh, what? You show him the baby, meaning that Serena's not only acting like a regular human being, she's even going a bit further than most mistresses would.
Yes, because it does make like when you see June being able to see the baby, it starts to make sense in a twisted way on why they keep the handmaid separated like that.
Yeah.
Because it's like clearly like keep the less connection, the better. You're going to have another Janine situation on your hands. I mean, obviously, it's hard enough to steal a baby from a mother. Never mind if they're like going through the whole thing, seeing the sonograms and getting that connection. And yeah, like I like because me watching it, I'm the same as June. I'm like, why is she acting this? Why is Serena being nice? What is the fucking what's the end game here? You know, what is she up to? And they string us along really nicely throughout the episode and kind of give us in the same way that June gets this false sense of security where she can kind of make a leap of faith and ask to try to see her daughter. But I mean, we'll get there. But the build to it, I think, is done pretty well.
Yeah. I mean, what's the answer to that question then? Why she's acting like this? Is it just that there should be harmony in the household for the baby's sake?
I think it's a little of that. And I mean, the thing is, I hate Serena. Like, I hate her.
Yeah.
But I do believe that she thinks it's her baby, based on this like weird society they've built. And I guess as we see through some of the flashbacks, it's kind of like her only hope now, anyways, because we've already seen her get shut out of the society she helped create. So all she has left is to be a mother. And it kind of is like this almost losing the baby, like the same what we just went through in the previous episode, maybe knocked a little bit of sense into her and a little bit more trust. Where yeah, it's kind of for the greater good until it isn't.
Yes. So she even brings June down to be in the sitting room and sleep there, and gives her all sorts of little treats and surprises, very surprising surprises. And I mean, it is almost like a connection, and as you said, a sort of stringing along thing growing, because she just a couple of episodes ago she was sneaking into Offred's bed to put her hand on her stomach in the middle of the night, and now June actually offers, "Do you want to feel it?" And she sort of waits for that permission. And then she looks heartbroken when June gives that permission to the other handmaids as if it's her permission to give. It's a complex situation because if she was a character who was just plucked out of nowhere, I don't know, she wouldn't have the same internal conflict of, I did this, I was even more of a leader than my husband, as we see, and I was a spokesperson, and I made this happen, and now I can't even fucking write like the ants can.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and we do get these flashbacks of Serena, and at first I kind of rolled my eyes at the kind of ripped from the headlines college campus speech that is protested, and then it's the same arguments you hear, like, let this person speak, this is America. We hear from someone who is now like a commander in Gilead that does not let people speak.
Yeah.
I mostly rolled my eyes because it was almost, at first I wasn't sure if they were going for a like you see, this is why we can't let them speak type deal. But I feel like in retrospect, because I've read some discussions on the First Blood title of this episode, and they mentioned the ending with the explosion. But I read the First Blood is the fact that she gets fucking shot.
Yeah.
At one of her speeches, and in a weird way, it's like how you create these martyrs, and you create like it pushes these extremists more extreme, and like it also like you as an extremist on the other end is more extreme. Like I guess I appreciate that it was more complicated than what I initially thought they were going to go for with kind of this flashback here.
Yeah, I thought when her assistant or whoever it is gets shot, I thought like, oh, and they're gonna get in the car and drive away, and then like, nope, Serena got shot.
And I can almost assume that's why she can't have a child, or unless it's just a natural thing of how a lot of people can't. But I mean, it is kind of specific that she gets shot like almost in her groin, kind of.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you heard, Jim, but the rate of healthy births has dropped by 61% in the last 12 months. So,
oh shit, I missed edition of the Gilead Gazette.
Yeah. No, yeah, I mean I think that's a fair assumption, or it's fair. They've left it sort of vague. We don't really need to get into it, and maybe I even have like some vague memory of like maybe something is alluded to in season 1 in regards to that. I don't know. I feel like if she could have had a baby, she would have before then or during then, because she's literally going around campaigning to say that every woman needs to have a baby if they can. So I don't know how much we can blame the shooter, but it could be.
Well, and it's interesting because, yeah, I feel like the people on the right side, like I'm talking about correct, like the correct people, they draw first blood and almost make things worse, and then that puts it to the point. Because I read one article that was talking about how the commander is putting words in Serena's mouth for her speech, and she's kind of a little bit more timid with the crowd, and that is true. I mean, that's there. But the big thing we see is that she's the one that tells him to be a man. And then it cuts to the next scene where he's like executing a woman in front of the presumed shooter.
Yeah,
So,
like a
like,
real men do.
yeah, like I like the playoff. It's not cut and dry of like, oh, this misogynistic world that pushed Serena, the men that pushed her to be the mouthpiece. It's kind of a little bit of both. It's a back and forth, and the commander is a little bit more like a weeping, sad person after things get real, and she's the one that pushes him even further. And it starts with someone getting shot at a speech, and now we're at a point where someone is doing a suicide bombing at another speech. So it's like it takes two to tango, I guess.
Yes, the subtitle of our podcast, Gilead Gazette, it takes two to tango. Yeah, I mean, it's a nice movement because we start with preparing for the speech where he's adding some comments to her speech. And but I also get the feeling that she's not like, oh yes, of course. She's kind of like, no, I think this is better. And then in the end, after she gets shot, he's sort of breaking down, and she is putting words in his mouth about the speech that he needs to give because all eyes are on them. And I do feel like this is a sort of turning point of she was a leading figure in this movement, and then she became a martyr, and a martyr in this case, someone you need to protect and like put a wall around, and yeah, don't let them read, by the way. Like just she's sort of locked away, and that's I mean, it's her own creation, this situation, but it's also got a bit of yeah, like you said, she's like, yeah, be a man up, go kill the woman is exactly what I meant by that, by the
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. It's just an interesting way that things play out. And I mean, I guess the way I'm talking, I'm not trying to side with the side of Gilead. I'm just saying it's interesting. They're not making it as cut and dry, like the journey to get here. Like it's almost like I could see that this act of what people thought was a greater good. We need to kill this lady who has these horrible ideas. Turned into this team of people that follow her are emboldened enough to make these terrorist attacks on the Capitol and really take over. It's just an interesting kind of journey there. And I mean, obviously by the end, it makes complete sense why I believe it's Off Glenn that runs in with the bomb.
Yeah.
Like it is a fuck yeah moment. It is what we've been talking about, like leading up through these episodes and discussing like all the bleakness and how we want a fuck yeah moment. It is a fuck yeah moment, and she's completely in the right. It's just interesting seeing both sides of that.
And I correct me if I'm wrong, but is she? I mean, she had her tongue removed because of speaking out at the end of the last season, but I think she's also the one who replaced Emily as as June's companion. And the sense we got then was that she was very sort of like not on board, but she was not trying to rock the boat, and she just blew up the boat. So there's a lot of evolution within her as well, going from this person who doesn't want to do anything to upset anything because the previous person who was in my position got sent to the weird ass colonies or whatever we call them. So she's gotten to this point as well, has become sort of emboldened. This wasn't the diehard Mayday leader. This was one of the handmaids who you pushed too far.
Yes, yeah, and you have to wonder what's going on over in Commander Glenn's household if all these handmaids in his order are falling into Mayday. What's going on? They got their own Nick over there, apparently.
Yes.
Speaking of Nick, we do get his wife confides in June about Nick and, his duties that he's not taking part in, which is, having sex with a 15-year-old girl. And she even kind of throws out like, oh, what is he, gay? I mean, she calls him a gender traitor. Like maybe he's a gender traitor. And it's this interesting thing where June has to try to help Nick by telling him he needs to go have sex with his underage wife because otherwise you're going to be hanging from a wall because they're going to.
That's Gilead. Like, gotta tell the father of your unborn child, your secret unborn child, to go have sex with his underage child bride, because otherwise you'll be hanging off a wall. Typical Gilead. Ah.
And I mean, following through on that storyline, there they have the hole in the sheet thing they introduce, and
Yeah.
from my understanding, that's like a Jewish thing or like a Hasidic, like very strict Jewish thing. So it is another interesting take. Like we've seen them pick and choose from different religions, like especially in this season, and I don't know if that's their. Like I've seen Margaret Atwood try to specify, like we're not attacking like a specific religion here. It's just more like the way extreme beliefs can go. So I don't know if that's just their way of kind of spreading it out, spreading the love, if you will, by introducing the hole in the sheet. Unless there is something in the Christian Bible about that as well. I don't know.
Well, I Googled because I had a vague thought that it had something to do with Mormonism as well. So I Googled Mormon sheet and it suggested Mormon sheet music. But then the first one is an article on stupid.com that says Mormons have marital relations through a hole in the sheet. But then the next post is myths about Mormonism that persist despite blah, blah, blah. So who knows if it's actually a thing, but then it also Google suggests to me sheet with hole Catholic as another thing.
Now,
Yeah.
I mean, full disclosure, I mostly know about it from Curb Your Enthusiasm, when he has sex with an Orthodox Jew and it's through a sheet.
Right. Yes, that is also here on Google. So, but I get, they're all Abrahamic religions. It's probably in there if you look in the book somewhere. Otherwise, it's just so weird that people would make that up afterwards unless it was mentioned at some point. But hey, that's religion for you. Just make things up. Yeah, it was sort of a weird thing because the commander certainly doesn't do that when he tries to impregnate a handmaid, but then they have their whole own little ritual for that. And I don't know if we've seen other people have sex consensually with their wives, so who knows?
Yeah. And I mean, I guess before that, backtrack a little bit. What a great awkward scene when Serena invites the other handmaids over. And we talk a lot, well, not just us, but in general, people talk about oneers a lot. Like it's always, shows and movies go for these impressive oneers. Like I think True Detective had a great one in season 1. Of course, there's the oneers in Goodfellas, like when they're going through the back of the Copa. But even though there's not a lot of technical camera stuff going on here, this is all in one shot. And it's really impressive just because it's like you have it's like 6 or 7 actors all in one scene and they're kind of hitting their marks and they're hitting that right tone of like awkward. It's like it's not quite your boss hanging out with you and your friends, but it is almost that. I mean, it's worse obviously because it's handmaid mistress or wife or what have you. And it's such a it's so smartly written the way they get to that point of how June's talking about, oh, you remember that restaurant over on Beacon Hill or whatever she says? And then Serena remembers the name of it. And it's like, oh, yeah, like not too long ago, we may have all been shopping at the same coffee shop. And now we're in this horrible situation.
Yeah, and just to add to it, hey, Ofglin, what do you think? Let's speak up, Ofglin. Cat got your tongue, Ofglin? And it's kind of like, and I thought maybe she doesn't know, but then she has this look of like realizing, and it's like, ooh, awkward. Haha, my society I made. Get out your tongue. I forgot about that. And she's acting like, hey, let's hang out and have a little bit of girl time. And it's like, and then that's sort of a slap in the face of that, of like, hey, you got no tongue over there. And then June says, hey, want to feel the baby? Which Serena, that's her baby in her mind. So of course that doesn't make her feel great. And you're right. It's a oneer. It doesn't have the True Detective run around with a gun type thing that's impressive, but it is impressive in the way the longer the scene goes on, the more it feels like a moving painting. Um, Also because of their choice of color in this show is always super deliberate. I mean, there's a lot of red, but in general, it all works into the composition and the movement of it. It's better than a painting because it moves. I'm a bit partial, of course, because I run a TV podcast. But yeah, it's a very nice oneer that's stationary without getting boring at all because it all fuels the scene.
Yes, and because I mean, usually you wouldn't have it be this one shot like that because it has to be well written and obviously well acted to not feel like it's dragging. Like it's really
Yeah.
hard to just have people talking in one shot without it feeling like it's boring. But with the situation and the way it's written and the way they're nailing it, it all comes together and it's really impressive.
Yeah, and I mean, I've done that, by the way. I've tried to make something like this, and we had to fucking cut. We had to do jump cuts in it because it was fucking boring. So yes, it's hard.
And then I mean, we see Serena kind of going to her greenhouse, her garden a lot. I guess that's where she goes to think and play things out, apparently. And it's interesting because it's almost like we're supposed to somehow feel sorry for her when she's a monster. But they were almost getting me. Like they were almost getting me to root for them having this weird alliance, if you will, where maybe Serena would kind of give June a break here or there. But it all comes to a head when, I mean, she's showing June the fucking nursery where she's gonna raise the kids she steals from her.
Yeah.
And so June kind of feels like maybe this is an opportunity where I can ask for one thing just to see my daughter Hannah. And to Serena, it's like, I give you an inch and you take a mile.
Yeah. Yeah, she's really like, oh, the impudence. Like that's like it's even just that she's asking about that is the worst thing, I guess. Not like when it's almost as bad as when she ran away for months.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, but it's like for a second, I guess I almost thought she was gonna do it. Like I almost thought that she would kind of give her this one thing, but then it was clear, like, oh no, she's not gonna do that. And yeah, I think she even does when she's talking to Fred or Commander Fred later, where she is kind of saying basically that, like, oh, she just takes and takes and takes, and all the good things I do for her. I mean, we haven't talked a bit about how we get some more scenes in this episode with June and the commander, and kind of back to their weird relationship that they have, where June is doing what she can to kind of get to get something out of this ordeal. So she has to kind of be a little flirty with the commander, and like I guess manipulate him the best she can. And then of course he's just a weird perv about it.
Yeah, of course. Like, I mean, that comes to a head when he does give her the picture of Hannah.
Yeah.
And sort of I mean, like she says, we haven't talked. I've been back. It's been so long. And sort of throwing out some feelers there. And he's sort of like, yeah,
He gives the classic, like, are you mad at me?
yeah.
Like such a classic relationship thing. I mean, clearly they're not in like a real relationship, but yeah, it's just an interesting choice there.
Yes. And then he does give the picture and once more. But I mean, she is playing her cards right because she says she's worried about the baby. And I think not only does she obviously not want to have any type of intercourse with this fucking weirdo, not only that, but also denying him that, which he wants, is actually going to make him want it more or want to please her more as well. Because as we saw in season one, when he does take her to a weird brothel club and all these things, it's sort of him asserting his ownership of her, because he started to see the handmaids as sort of toys, more or less, for him. And this is her adding to her own value of like, oh no, for the baby. And he doesn't go, I mean, he's not mad about that. He's like, yeah, of course, sorry. Like, I don't know if she says sorry, but he totally backs off, and that's going to grow in his head. He's already gotten to this point where he's sworn to Serena, and his whole career is on the line because they don't like it when you mess with handmaids. You get your hands cut off, man. And he's still doing this, and now he doesn't even get what he wanted out of it, so that's just going to grow.
Yes, no, absolutely. And we also, I mean, after Serena shuts her down, she does kind of send Offred back to her room. Get your stuff, like get your stuff out of my sitting room. Like things are kind of getting a little bit more back to normal. And then Offred and Nick have some talks. And I'm always like, I'm way more nervous when they're having these discussions, even at night when she's burning letters and he comes up, because it's like, dude, someone's gonna smell that burning paper, or like, dude, you're only upstairs. Serena's right downstairs, and they're having these discussions. I get it's a TV show; they kind of have to do it, but I'm always deathly afraid that someone is just gonna walk right in and hear this discussion they're having. But it is great to see kind of old June back, because she has a great line where she's like, "Oh, you have to fuck someone you don't want to, you poor thing."
Yes.
And it's a small victory. It's like another small victory. I'm like, yes, that's June. Like that's the June we know and love. Because it is kind of like, oh no, you have to like have sex with a young girl. Fuck you, you piece of shit.
Yes, a young girl who wants to have sex with you, even. I mean, I guess the commander wants to too, so that's not a good point for me. But yes, I mean, we sort of skimmed past. I mean, you meant that you're more afraid than the characters, right? By the way, like, because they seem like they're not worried at all. And even in this episode, in the sitting room, Rita sort of has to clear her throat to get their attention. No, not Rita. Martha has to clear her throat to get their attention when she comes in with the soup and everything, and they're kind of like, oh yeah, yeah, of course. So you're right. You're absolutely right. They're
I'm
just sort
always
of.
afraid they're gonna get caught. Like something's gonna happen, because yeah, they're just having these discussions. They're basically saying like, we have a secret love and we have sex behind everyone's back, and
Yeah.
we've been plotting a revolution.
And I mean, additionally, Serena knows, or yeah, the commander knows, and Serena knows. Martha probably knows too. Everyone knows except fucking Eden, of course. Knows that Nick is the father of the baby, and if the handmaid escapes, maybe you'd start wondering how that happened. Maybe you start like looking around, like who has an interest in getting this baby out of here? Like, how has no one thought of that? Is what I want to know.
Well, I gotta wonder. I mean, I guess I'm not 100% that they know. Oh wait, no, because wait, Serena set them up. Wait,
Yeah,
what happened?
Serena arranged it.
No, you're right.
So
You're right. Now, I'm not 100% then the commander knows,
I'm
but
pretty sure Serena told him because
I thought
she was
she
like,
told them they had a connection. But did she explicitly say like it was his baby? Oh, when they had was it when they had a fight that she said it to hurt him? I forget.
I thought so, but yes, we should. I mean, we're doing a podcast. We should know this stuff. Please do email us at showswhatyouknowshow@gmail.com. Tell us what's up.
Either way, at the very least, the commander knows there's a connection there, and that's why he's like obviously trying to get rid of him.
Yeah.
But you're completely right. Like if she goes missing, maybe that's the first place you'd look. Although at least Nick does have some connections in higher places. And I feel like in a way, if we get towards, as we're getting towards the ending here, I think that's why it takes a little bit of steam out of the ending for me, is because I think it's clear that this is happening to throw a monkey wrench into Nick's plan. Because
Yeah.
Nick speaks to, I mean, like, I guess the higher up commander, because in the background of this episode, they've been setting up a new facility for handmaids. And it's like, it's a far cry from the gymnasium or whatever they were using before. It looks like they kind of have this nice, fancy new building where they're going to be teaching handmaids and housing them or whatever it is they do. Nice place for Aunt Lydia to hold things down. But beforehand, Nick does go up to his connection and he kind of says, there's issues here at Fred's place. We need to protect the handmaid. And he's like, say no more. Like, it'll be done with. But I feel like this explosion is going to throw a monkey wrench into that. And I feel like Fred's going to come out fine on the other end. But maybe this older gentleman who has power is not.
I mean, Fred is going to be promoted after this,
Yes.
is the thing. And what is Nick's plan? Because he says reassign me. He wants to get away from there, but that's like the one advantage they have is that they can have these little meetings that no one apparently ever thinks to walk in on. And he does say promise you'll protect the handmaid, but he says there are things I haven't told you about him. So yeah, maybe he was gonna take the commander down in some way, but none of that really gets June out of there. And even saying like promise you'll protect the handmaid, it's like yeah, it's still one of the Gilead guys. Remember, like she's not gonna be that protected. So I don't know what the plan is. What do you think?
I from what I read from it is that yeah, it was something that was gonna basically take Fred out. And I mean, I guess to the extension of that would be Serena as well. And that's why protect the handmaid. I mean, she'd have to be protected either way because she's pregnant. So even if like there was some sort of power shakeup where he was going to lose his commander status, they would protect June just because she's going to have a baby, I would imagine. But yeah, I mean, that's why this Glen situation is going to completely fix that. And yeah, the Fred's going to be the new like head commander or whatever the top brass.
Yeah, you're totally right. Ugh. Yeah, but I mean, also that plan was still bad. Maybe it's Stockholm syndrome, but I'm really like, oh, another family would be at least as bad. I'm sure. Like, yeah, no, that's not true. I'm sure another family would be probably better in some ways, but it's like you're still in Gilead. You're like maybe get a family closer to the Canadian border. Like, what the fuck are you gonna do?
Yeah, no, exactly. I can't. I mean, I guess Serena is probably a little bit more sadistic than some of the other wives, but I can't imagine to be that much better of a situation. And it almost is kind of like the devil rather than going into a potentially worse situation. But I assume Nick had a plan that would extend beyond that, but we're not going to see that. You mentioned it a little bit before that. We do kind of see Serena versus Offred is kind of, here we are, round 2. Like they're back to their old ways. She's throwing knitting needles on the floor to make June pick them up, and she's doing it in front of Nick's wife. And I did forget that I knew obviously Serena knew about Nick and June's connection because they made a thing about it in an earlier episode where she saw them like trading glances.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess maybe to her it's worse that there's more of like a connection than what she thought was just like I'm going to make them have sex so she gets pregnant type of deal.
Yeah.
Worse that there's some budding romance, and that's why like this is twisting the knife extra because she wants Nick's wife to also kind of, hey, you order the handmaid around too. It's fun. It's a good time for all.
Yes, and I mean she does sort of stoke the flames because she goes to Waterford, to the commander, and he's not really listening to her at one point, and she just sort of mentions like, "Oh, Nick was waiting for us when we got back. He's so nice, right? That he's taking care. He's such a good guy." And I think it's after that he tries to reassign him and everything. But all of that is like the stakes are so low for me as far as like because he was already going to get reassigned because Waterford wanted it. Then he went and said like, "I'll tell you about Waterford if you reassign me." It's like, oh, okay, like so you both wanted that, so that could still happen then, and Offred will still be not in a great place.
Well, it also, I mean, it was a reminder, at least when it was like, the previously on, it was a reminder that they had put Nick specifically in that situation to keep an eye on Waterford. So it made more sense on why the guy was like, oh, he's pretty good. You should keep him. Like, I don't know why you want to send him to Washington because, it's very deliberate that he's there to get some dirt on him. And so now Nick is holding that in front of him as like, okay, I got the dirt, so protect the handmaid, but don't worry, everyone's gonna get blown up here, and we'll be back at it again in episode 7.
Yes, and I mean the ending. There's a lot of weirdos in suits, and they keep talking about how important it is, and I don't get exactly the details. I mean, obviously, it's like commanders from all sorts of districts or whatever, but I still don't know how big Gilead is. If it is all of the U.S. and how much of it is it a nuclear wasteland or whatever. So it's a bit tricky, but either way, it doesn't matter because the visual storytelling is here. We got all these guys in suits, like, you get it. These are all, and they're all greeted very formally, and this is a big deal. So that tells us what we need to know for when Offglen comes up and does her dramatic explosion, which is still a fuck yeah moment, even if when we know it's probably not going to change so much.
Yeah, no, it's totally a fuck yeah moment. It is still a great moment, especially like how we've talked about. There's been so much misery. It didn't quite hit for me as well as like in season 1 when Emily was like running over the guards and shit.
Yeah.
Like I was like, hell yeah. But it's still a great moment, and I like how when she comes in and stupid Waterford's like, he just thinks she's dumb. He's like, oh, tell her it's not time yet. Like he's waves her off like, oh, tell her it's not time yet. Oh, the dumb handmaid already came in. You're not supposed to come in yet. And I mean, it's played out great. She turns around and shows the trigger, and then the handmaids go running, and then the building blows up. So it is a kick-ass way to end an episode for sure.
Well, the ones on the bottom floor we do see that when the explosion goes off, the ones on the top floor just sort of get flung against the glass, which gives me hope that a lot of them probably got taken out, but at the same time, that's probably just gonna make fucking Waterford like the supreme leader or whatever. It's gonna be the same effect as as when fucking Serena got shot. And suddenly all eyes were on them, and suddenly all your power is concentrated in this one place. Great, that'll be great. I guess it means at some point, if you kill him, I mean, there'll just be 2 more heads of the snake, I suppose. But maybe this is putting us in a position where Waterford has even more power. So if, I don't know, Offred saws his head off at one point, like the biggest fuck yeah moment, it's like not only killing him, but it's killing Gilead, maybe.
Yeah, I could totally see that for sure. But I mean, they're giving us these small things in these. I mean, well, that's obviously a big thing, the suicide bombing. But like we were talking about in the previous episode as well, a couple small things. So we're starting to get some hell yeah moments. Hopefully, we get a little bit more, but it does seem like we're probably going to get some a little bit more misery before we get what we want. So just tune in for another Handmaid's Tale.
And another Gilead Gazette. And don't tune into any other sources on the web about The Handmaid's Tale, because they will spoil you even in a headline like, say, oh, the climax of this episode was the biggest twist ever. And then I'm sitting there trying to concentrate on the plot when I'm just like, when's this fucking thing happening? And then I see that they're all heading into this big event, and I'm like, well, clearly this fucking explosion or some shit is gonna fucking... So just tune into Gilead Gazette. You can find us on iTunes or your favorite podcatching app. You can also find Westworld Theories, yes, that is the name of the show, on your favorite podcast app, where we discuss Westworld Season 2 currently. That's Westworld Theories. And all of our shows are, of course, available at showswhatyouknowshow.com. What else, Jim?
Well, you can find more from Jacob at awesomepedia.org. All kinds of good content and podcast, music, videos. And you can also find more from me at jimandthem.com. The same deal.
Stop the presses!